Hi, Miss Eglin here. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the quick little quizzes and the journal prompts for chapters 6 through 10 of Lois Lowry's The Giver. This section is the fill in the blank, and it says number 1, 4s, 5s, and 6s wore jackets with buttons in the back to learn to help one another or to learn interdependence, meaning they had to help each other get dressed because they could not reach the buttons in the back of their tunics. 7s had their buttons in the front, and 8s got jackets with pockets to learn responsibility. Number 2, Gabe would not get a family this year because he was being given one more year to grow. 3, Asher's mother had known someone who applied for elsewhere and was never seen again. And this is all according to a story that Asher is retelling to Jonas. Multiple choice. Number 4, the family whose son had died got B, a replacement child named Caleb. 5, at the ceremony, Fiona got a baby brother named Bruno. And the think a little question, why do you think someone might want to apply for elsewhere? Well, in the story, Asher said, he was driving his mother, quote unquote, crazy. And, she was kind of joking about applying for elsewhere. Chapter 7, quick little quiz. Number 1, the ceremony of 12 was the time to acknowledge differences after they, meaning the 11s, had spent their childhoods learning to fit in. 2, Asher was appointed to be the assistant director of recreation, and Fiona was appointed to be a caretaker of the old. 3, at the ceremony, Jonas was skipped over. Remember, he was number 11, 19, and they went, from 18 to 20, and Jonas did not know why. 4, each new child got a B number at birth. 5, when Asher was 3, he would confuse B, the words snack and smack. Think a little. How do you feel about the story of Asher when he was 3? Do you think it was funny or sad? Why? So we know in that story the audience was like roaring with laughter, whereas I think most of us would not think that's very funny. And, Asher went mute. We would really probably consider that more child abuse than a hilarious story. But it is showing us in the book how important they take the acquisition of language and being precise in your language. They take it to a really ridiculous extreme. Okay, chapter 8, quick little quiz. Number 1, Jonas was not assigned because he was selected to be the next receiver of memory. 2, being a receiver required courage because it involved physical pain. 3, Jonas does not think he has the capacity to see beyond. 4, the chief elder says the job of receiver is both A and B. A cannot be modified, and B is the most honored job in the community. And number 5, when Jonas looks out at the audience, he sees them change. A. So he looks at the people's faces, and the same thing that happened with the apple happens again to Jonas, and then he becomes slightly more confident, like, yes, I do have this capacity to see beyond. I don't understand it, but something is happening here. And to think a little, this is more of a prediction. What do you think the job of receiver will be like? Chapter 9. Fill in the blanks. 1, Lily was excited about starting her volunteer hours at the nurturing center. And again, that's where father works. 2, Jonas's parents told him that the last receiver was a female and the name was never to be spoken again. They did not know what happened, only that they never saw her again. 3, Jonas's instructions said he was exempt from rules about rudeness and could ask anyone anything. At the time he's kind of thinking like, oh, I'll never use this rule, and kind of surprised by it. 4, Jonas was no longer allowed to C, both A and B, tell his dreams, or B, apply for release. 5, Jonas was allowed to A, lie, and that is the most shocking rule to Jonas. He is very shocked by that and, disturbed. The think a little is, do you think the instructions Jonas has will change his way of living? Why or why not? So now we know, he can no longer tell the dreams. And they said he usually doesn't remember his dreams except for the, Fiona dream and the bath. But typically he doesn't remember them anyway. Okay, chapter 10, quick little quiz. Number 1, the living area of the receiver was similar to his own except for the books, thousands. 2, the only 3 books in Jonas's house are a dictionary, a community volume, and the Book of Rules. That's it. 3, the old receiver looks old and tired because of the weight of the memories. And this is what he tells Jonas, like, I'm really not as old as you may think I am. 4, the old receiver says his job is to C, transmit the memories of the whole world to Jonas. And Jonas is just thinking he's going to tell him stories about his life. But that's not what's going to happen. 5, the old receiver says they have hard and painful work to do. Think a little. The old receiver says wisdom comes as he experiences his memories again and again. What do you think he means? Okay, and that is really where we're left at the end of chapter 10. Okay, I'm going to go over the journal prompts. This is chapter 6, emotions do not drive decisions or actions in the community. The quote that would support this would be, even the matching of spouses, husbands or wives, was given such weighty consideration that sometimes an adult who applied to receive a spouse waited months or even years before a match was approved and announced. All of the factors, disposition, that's kind of like your personality, energy level, intelligence, and interest, had to correspond and interact perfectly. And then Jonas goes on to describe how balanced, his parents' relationship is. The analysis, what are the benefits and drawbacks of controlled emotion? The benefit would be to control your emotions, keeps them from overwhelming you. So I'd maybe fix this. The benefit would be to control your emotions, which keeps them from, I'll say possibly, I'll just say from overwhelming you. For example, when someone you love is released from the community, if you didn't feel emotion, you would not probably say get you wouldn't get too upset or break any rules. And the drawbacks are you can't really get emotionally attached to somebody. It's against the rules. And the implication is that no one would really care about anybody else that much. So, if you did have a spouse or a child who got released and was gone and, went somewhere you couldn't get to, you might never see them again. And then that was just the way it is. That was the rules. Moving on to chapter 7, Asher has never really been accepted because of his constant rule breaking and mistakes. Jonas, and the quote is, Jonas noticed that Asher looked nervous. All of us in the community know and enjoy Asher, the chief elder began. Asher grinned and scratched one leg with the other foot. The audience chuckled softly. And then the analysis is, why do you think the chief elder says thank you for your childhood after giving an assignment? Relate this to Asher's childhood. Thank you for your childhood is mostly a formal acknowledgement that someone's childhood is coming to a close, maybe meaning like good job, you're not just a kid anymore. But also, it may mean that it's not just their personal childhood, but almost like the communities as a whole. Asher's a member of the community, and that's why his rule breaking and mistakes if they were not corrected, could reflect badly on them. And that's why they have to take such a, a hard stand to make sure everybody's the same and everybody's following the rules. Okay, chapter 8. Jonas has been selected, not assigned. The committee of elders was sitting together in a group, and the chief elder's eyes were now on one who sat in the midst, but seemed oddly separate from them. It was a man Jonas had never noticed before, a bearded man with pale eyes. He was watching Jonas intently. The analysis is, what's the difference between, selected and assigned? What physical trait does Jonas have in common with the receiver? Okay, the difference between being selected rather than assigned is that there is only one receiver, and he's somehow apart from the community. He has the same pale eyes like the old receiver. Some other qualities that match with the old man are intelligence, integrity, and courage. And they do mention wisdom, but Jonas, the chief elder, says will not get wisdom until he gets the pain and experiences that. So I did not add the wisdom part. Journal prompt number 9, chapter 9. Jonas starts to question the actions of community members, and the quote that supports this is, "From the moment you are exempted from rules governing rudeness, you may ask any questions of citizens and you will receive answers." And then Jonas starts wondering, and actually I would probably add to this quote the part where he asked, well, what if everybody's lying? Okay, because the analysis is, what would be the benefit of Jonas not having to share dreams and be able to lie? What does this allow him to do? Well, he can ask anybody anything, and he doesn't have to be afraid of being rude. He even thinks of asking his dad whether he had lied in his life or not. And the implication is that everybody could have, you may lie, and then they're all lying to each other. And nobody would know because they're lying. So you can't trust really anything anybody says. And that's why that throws Jonas off so much. Chapter 10. Jonas finds several things unusual about the receiver's dwelling. "Oh, please," he replied uncomfortably, "call me Jonas." Jonas stared at them. He couldn't imagine what the thousands of pages contained. Could there be rules beyond the rules that governed the community? Could there be more descriptions of offices and factories and committees? He's like, what are in all these books? I'd almost put a bracket here, because really what he means, what he's looking at are these books. It's not really clear from that quote. When you're using quotes, you do have to be careful, because you're leaving things out, and because you don't want your quote to be an entire page. It's just a section, so sometimes you can clarify with the brackets. What is elsewhere? Why do you think Jonas doesn't know what snow or a sled or downhill means? And elsewhere could be anything outside his particular community. Jonas doesn't know the meaning of snow or a sled because he has never experienced anything outside this community. He hasn't experienced what we would call the, quote unquote world. He's living in a robotic community where the future of every citizen is already decided. So, Jonas does not know. He's kind of finding out right now how much he doesn't know. Okay, so that's it for chapter 10. I'm going to stop there. And just a reminder, your Giver full text is in the Giver unit materials in Teams. But when I want to pull a quote, sometimes I just go to an online version. I might just Google the Giver PDF. But please remember that the page numbers could be wrong. And also you want to be careful, because some of the text might actually be annotated, or there's things added, or things are edited out. So just be careful that you are getting the original text. Okay, thanks for listening. I hope this helped. To study more, you can listen to my other Giver videos or reread the PDF or the book. Thanks.